In the last 2 weeks, I've audited 10 Google Ads accounts, and I've really noticed the same pattern, a lot of which was coming from you guys on YouTube. So wanted to make this video really just to talk about that common pattern I saw, which is the fact that almost everybody's CPCs were actually too high to what they should have been. And no, it's not actually due to competition. It's honestly just due to the bidding strategies that you're using. So in today's video, I really wanted to go over my blueprint in terms of understanding when you need to take a more manual approach of like manual CPC, and then also when to use max conversions, tCPA, tROAS, all the fancy names that there are in the different bidding strategies. This video is going to give you an understanding of where you use these certain bidding strategies, what stage of the account you should actually be implementing certain strategies, and what you want to use or what type of targets to set when you're scaling. Because there's really a common misconception. For example, I'll see that there's just a tCPA target set on the campaign level, but there's no max bid limit. And then that allows Google to really just bid whatever it wants per click. And that's actually going to be the difference between being able to profitably scale or actually having to cut back on spend. Because if you think about it too, if you're paying $3-4 per click, where if you actually set a bid cap at $2, you could pay for that exact same traffic, just get double of it. All of a sudden, again, you're going to get double the performance. And that's the difference between being able to crank up budget and actually furthering your results from Google Ads versus actually having to cut back and be more selective. So it actually does make a big difference. This is exactly what I see for one of my clients. We're getting 80-cent CPCs in an industry where $2 to $3 is typical. And again, think about that, 2 to 3 times less cost per click means we can all of a sudden have that funneled back or reflected in return on ad spend 2 to 3 times higher. Okay, so let's dive right into the screen share. Okay, so diving right in, what I want you to look at, like I filtered here, is the bid strategy type. And what you'll notice, there's only really 2 types of bidding strategies I'm running here, a manual CPC and then a max conversions with a tCPA. And what I want to emphasize is your targets and the bidding strategy that you use should be aligned with your goals. Okay, so why we use a manual CPC here is because these are for branded campaigns. And for branded campaigns, we always want to be able to achieve as low of a CPC as possible. Why? Because we know these people are already going to buy from you, right? So what's the point of setting a target return of ad spend on 400, 500% when we know these people are going to buy anyway? And with smart bidding, it's leveraging different signals that it has based on people's past behavior, searching for different products or browsing different websites to understand how to dynamically bid higher. We don't want any of that. For branded campaigns, we literally just want to say, I want to bid $1 to $2 per click because I know that's relatively speaking how much branded traffic should cost for me, in the sense also that you're going to have a 10 out of 10 quality score for your own branded terms, because again, Google understands your brand is going to reward you for a high quality listing, which naturally you're going to have. And that's why you should just be running manual CPC. And our CPCs are quite low for branded search. It's $1, $1.30. Typically speaking, there's almost no reason where your branded searches should be more than $2 unless you're in an insanely competitive industry or there's a ton of competitors bidding on you where you really need to do that level of protection. But again, what's going to happen with a target return on ad spend bidding strategy, a target CPA bidding strategy, or even target impression share, if you're using that where you are optimizing to show up at the top of the page, again, what's happening is Google is going to take that same type of signal and it's going to bid more aggressively to be able to pull you to the top of the page, even if you could have gotten away with the $2 bid instead of the $5 bid that you have in target impression share. So that's why for brand campaigns, and again, we can see that performance is relatively the same, right? Like there's no difference. Where brand campaigns, we always want to be on a manual CPC. And then for other campaigns, our goal should always be switching towards smart bidding. If you've just launched a newer account, the idea should be this. It should be collect as much conversion data as possible. You're launching with conversion tracking, optimizing for purchases. As soon as you literally get a few purchases, my goal would be to switch to tCPA, because that way you can A, optimize for conversions, B, you can set a target, so almost like a threshold. Even though you don't have a lot of data, Google has gotten to a point where you can flip onto these smart bidding strategies almost right away after just getting a few conversions and get away with it and get better results than if you stuck to manual CPC or max clicks for a month, 2 months, because it's just going to slow down your progress and performance of the account. Again, that's mostly going to be relevant for where you're running search campaigns. So if you're running a non-branded search campaign, these ones I was talking about branded, so your target, you're going after people actually searching the product categories or the products that you offer. That's where you want to use a tCPA. So the way that we set that up is we want to go to tools and then budgets and bid strategies. And now that we navigated here, what this section is, it's called portfolio bidding strategies. And the benefit of using them, this is going to be particularly for search campaigns, because for shopping campaigns, you really only have a manual CPC or a target return on ad spend bidding strategy. But for something like search campaigns, you can actually leverage these portfolio bidding strategies to be able to group multiple search campaigns under one bid strategy, and then also be able to set a max bid. Because if you're doing what you're doing right now, in the sense you have a tCPA set on the campaign level, there is no option to actually change the bid. So that's why we want to set these up. What I'll always like to do is start with like a max conversions. I don't like to use a shared budget here. And then as soon as we set any type of tCPA, we can actually set a max bid limit. So again, if you're a newer account, let's say you're just starting out on Google, you want to get a few conversions and then set the tCPA, relatively speaking, around what you're achieving right now, maybe even 10 to 20% more aggressive. And the way I want you to think about tCPA and tROAS, it's guardrails, right? It's not a hard target in the sense of Google can move left and right in terms of being able to achieve it, but the narrower you set the tCPA, the lower you set it, the harder it is to find people to be able to actually bid on and be aggressive on. So all of a sudden your results are going to be capped. And that's what you'll see is sometimes you adjust your tCPA targets way too restrictively, and then impressions in your account drop. Or your bids will be just too low if you're already set a max bid. If it's way too low, you won't be able to actually show ads because Google had to limit the actual people it serves it to. So your impressions are limited. So that's why, again, the tCPA needs to be realistic. Of course, we want to be able to achieve good results that are profitable for the business, but these tCPAs aren't hard targets in terms of KPIs for the business. Not always. Okay, especially if you're starting out, that shouldn't be the objective, but you can work towards that. Okay, so again, like I said, you always want to set a tCPA. You can set any type of bid. And then, like I said, you can group multiple campaigns. So if you hover over here, you'll be able to set up that bidding strategy under multiple campaigns. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of the blueprint so you understand. So we start off on Manual CPC. We move to the tCPA once we have a few conversions. And then this is going to allow us to optimize for sale volume, right? Because the ultimate goal, if you're a store with multiple varying values of products, we want to be able to optimize on value of sales, right? We want to tell Google, optimize to get us a 200, 300, 400% return on ad spend. And I want to optimize that spend towards products that are more likely to actually get us closer to that goal, because it's going to take into consideration people that are more likely to make larger orders, and also which products make sense to pair more to actually achieve your goal. But again, how can you optimize for value of conversions in that value before you actually have volume in the first place, right? So that's why we start with a tCPA. We want to run that for 14 to 30 days because you're already on smart bidding, you're safe. It's just we want to progress the account carefully. And this is a really good way because, again, at the start, your CPAs are going to be volatile. And even like when you just switch onto this, you want to measure what is stability looking like for 7, 14, 30 days. And then you can safely set a ROAS target, I would say within 20% of what you achieve. So if we're achieving a $100 CPA and our campaigns are getting a 300% ROAS, I would actually set it at like a 260, 270, around that. Why? Because, again, you never want to restrict the algorithm. Your whole goal here, again, you're setting a budget. You want to be able to spend that budget. When you set it way too restrictively, you run the risk of not being able to set it. You can test it. You can test setting it above your actual performance if you want to restrict a little bit. But just know that, again, as you scale, as you start to push up budget, you need to loosen those targets as well. And that's something you might already be seeing is you're trying to push up budget, or you have a certain daily budget set. Let's say you're set at a $300 per day budget for a certain campaign, but then it only spends $150. The first thing I always check whenever I hear that is, what is our bidding strategy looking like? Is our tCPAs, are our tCPAs just set too restrictively? Same with tROAS on the other front. Are they just way too high? And that's essentially the answer. Sometimes it's just a click of a button, just making it less aggressive. So that's something to keep in mind on the bid strategy side. And a fun exercise I like to do as well is click on average CPC. So what we did here is, particularly for search campaigns, go to search terms and then filter by average CPC, because again, this is where you have so much control over bids. What I'll literally see 60, 80, $100 clicks, which, again, think about that. You spent that on one click. Depending on your average order value, again, you still might be profitable from getting a click like that. But again, wouldn't you rather have 40, 50 other potential buyers have clicked on your ad rather than just paying that for, one human to click? So that's something to keep in mind. And again, Google will be ruthless, right? Because think about it as well. Let's say it doesn't have enough potential searches to actually target within the keyword selection that you'll have. What's going to happen when you don't have a bid limit is it's going to spike up how much you're paying per click to be able to achieve to be able to actually spend your daily budget, right? Because what's Google's goal ultimately? Google's goal ultimately, obviously, to have good user experience, and actually make sure people enjoy shopping or existing on the platform and having a good experience with ads, but also to be able to spend your money, right? Because again, if it's going to find any way to be able to spend your money. Again, if there's not enough demand, then it's going to tell you to increase bids. And if you don't have a bid limit, it's going to do it itself. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. That's really why performance max campaigns pretty much always spend, is because you don't have a bid limit and there's so many other placements that you can serve on. But on the other hand, for search campaigns or centered shopping campaigns, sometimes as well, with a target return on ad spend, if it's set too restrictively, it won't be able to spend. Okay, so that really wraps up this video. I really wanted to just show you how you counteract high CPCs just using bidding strategies. Definitely always use those portfolio bidding strategies and group them across multiple campaigns. I would always keep branded campaigns on Manual CPC so that we can actually have those bids under control. And then our goal should always be to move towards smart bidding. Why? Because you want to leverage the data Google has on pretty much every customer who's searching out there. It understands how to dynamically shift bids. But we, again, don't want it to go out of control and bid $50, $70, $100 for one click. That's why we want to set those max bid limits. Okay. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you want me to personally do a deep dive into your account, I'm happy to do so. You can book a call with me in the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.